Good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are still in the last chapter of the laws, not the last chapter of book 3 yet, because there is another chapter, but the laws that we are discussing, we are in the last chapter, which is the law of justice, love, and charity. As I mentioned last week, it's the only law amongst all of those that we study that have more than one name under it. But as we explained also last week, this comes, if you go to the original in Hebrew, there is one word that encompasses justice, love, and charity. And we talked that can be no justice, divine justice, without love and without charity. We started last week the right of property, theft. We did the first couple of questions, but I'm going to ask Philip to read the first 3 questions. So we start from the beginning on this one, but we'll comment after he reads. So Philip, can you read 880 until 882?
What is the first natural right of human beings? The right to live. Therefore, no one has the right to take the life of another or do anything that may compromise that individual's existence. 881. Does the right to live give people the right to hoard wealth so that they can rest when no longer able to work? Yes, but they should do this in collaboration with their family by honest labor, as bees do, not by accumulating wealth in a selfish manner. Some animals serve as an example for this kind of foresight. 882. Do humans have the right to defend what they have accumulated with their work? It was God who said, "Thou shalt not steal," and Jesus who said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's." What people have accumulated by honest labor is legitimate property that they are entitled to defend. The possession of property that is the fruit of work is a natural right, as sacred as the right to labor or the right to live.
Okay, so the first natural right of human beings is the right to live. We discussed that last week. And also the right to live gives people the right to accumulate wealth, better than hoard wealth, accumulate wealth. So they can have provisions when they are no longer able to work. The problem is when you accumulate wealth in a selfish manner, so everything for yourself and not distributing to others, because our duty living in society is to distribute the wealth amongst those that need, that have nothing and need. Again, we have the right to save what we have earned honestly and to save it for the future when we may need it. But the problem is when we start accumulating wealth just for the sake of accumulating wealth. So these 2 questions we discussed last week. Now, then Kardec asked the spirits if humans have the right to defend what they accumulated with their work. And the spirits say, one of the 10 commandments that Moses brought to us, "Thou shalt not steal." And Jesus also said to us, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's." And this is in response to someone that came to Jesus and showed him a coin, arguing if he was asking Jesus if he was right or fair to pay tributes, taxes to the Romans who dominated Judea at the time. And then Jesus asks for a coin, shows the coin and asks, who is in the face of this coin? And they say, Caesar. So he said, so give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's. So the what is God's is our spiritual evolution. But so that's what belongs to us, and nobody can take away from us our spiritual evolution. Our material possessions, we have it here temporarily, because we cannot take anything material with us when we go back to the spiritual world. That's what Jesus was trying to tell us when he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's. And then Kardec makes the comment that what people accumulate with honest labor, they have to the right to possess it. It's their legitimate property. The fruit of work is a natural right, as sacred as the right to labor or the right to live. Again, we're not discussing here the injustices of the different remuneration that we have out there. You know, we mentioned last week, right, that the teachers are very underpaid in this country and throughout the world, in most places in the world, compared to people that works, for instance, in the financial markets or in some other places. People that work in the health industry also are underpaid in a lot of places. So, but that's, you know, that's the inequalities that we humans are responsible for it. But wherever we work, whenever we are working honestly and we are making our money honestly, we have the right to keep it, to use it as we deem appropriate. Of course, if we have excess of money, excess of wealth, and we don't distribute, we're going to create responsibilities for ourselves, cause and consequence, right? So people that will maybe in the future be reincarnated in very difficult situations because they had the opportunities to have wealth and did not know how to use their wealth. Okay? Questions, comments? Oops, sorry, go.
883.
Yeah.
Is the desire to own things natural? Yes, but when it is simply for yourself and for personal satisfaction, it is selfishness. Is the desire to have possessions legitimate, since those who can support themselves are not a burden to others? Some people are greedy and accumulate wealth merely in order to satisfy their own passions, and without providing any benefit to anyone. Do you think that this makes God happy? On the contrary, those who accumulate wealth by honest labor to help their fellow human beings practice the law of love and charity and receive God's blessing.
Okay. So the desire to own things natural, yes. It belongs to us at our stage of evolution. We as imperfect spirits, at this stage, we as humanity, we still need the carrot, right? We need to have the objective for us to make an effort to try to earn. And the carrot is you know, the remuneration that we are paid for our works. And again, we're talking in general, there is always exceptions. But in general, here, the population of this planet of trials and atonements, most of us, we work because we know that that's the way to make money and the way to take care of ourselves and of our loved ones. So the spirits say, the problem is when we are doing this only for ourselves and our personal satisfaction. or for our own, only for our families, when we are not thinking of those that are in need out there. So that becomes the problem, and that's the consequence of selfishness, right? Greed and selfishness, which is a very serious imperfections that many of us have. And again, the idea of have enough resources for us not to be a burden to others when we become older is also a very forgot the word. We should have it. Most of us should have this concern, because as we know, we are not here to be a burden to society. On the contrary, we are here to help society. So in order to help society, we need to feel comfortable with what we have. And again, and the level of comfort is different from each one of us. I was listening to a study today about the inhabitants of India, right? And their beliefs, and how they are able, many of them are able to live in poverty without feeling any problem with that, because of their religious beliefs, that they are much more focused on their spiritual life and their continuation. And so, you know, that's enough for them, good for them. But here we have different thoughts and different needs, and according to our needs is if we are doing honest work and we are practicing the law of love and charity, we are fulfilling God's law, which is the law of progress. Because in doing work, any type of work, remunerated or not, we are fulfilling the law of labor and the law of progress, which are two of the natural laws that we studied before. Okay? Okay.
884.
Yes.
What constitutes legitimate property? No property is legitimate unless acquired without harming others. The law of love and justice forbids us to treat others in a manner that we do not want others to treat us, condemns every means of obtaining property or wealth that would contradict that law.
Again, legitimate property is the one acquired legitimately without harming others. And here we need to go beyond the concept of just paying, paying someone for something, right? You're going to buy a house, and you notice that the seller is desperate because he's in desperate need of money, and taking advantage of the seller, you pay half of the price of the house, knowing perfectly that you are paying much less than what it's worth. You are harming others. You are abusing of your wealth, because, again, we don't need to pay more than what's worth. We need to pay fair value. That's legitimate property. So if we just have to think, if it was the other way around, if we were the sellers and someone was going to buy and was going to pay half of what it's worth, because we were desperate, would we think that that's fair? That is justice? No, right? So that's what Kardec tells us. The law of love and justice forbids us to treat others in a manner we do not want others to treat us. So every way of obtaining property or wealth that would contradict the law goes against the natural law. I know that we can always start questioning, well, there is a lot of gray areas here, right? Because there are some investments that are not illegal, but are not totally legal, especially for those that like I do that works in the financial markets, right? You have some things sometimes that you see in front of you that it's not illegal because they haven't found a way to forbid it yet. So you have to again ask your conscience and see if what you are doing goes according to your conscience. And we know that we are responsible for actions that we take, wrong actions that we take that we know we're doing wrong. So, if you take advantage of something unknowingly, right, and then later you found out that there was something wrong there, you didn't know, so you don't have the responsibility. Now, what you are going to do with what you achieve from that, that's something that you have to analyze with your own conscience, right? Because the act of doing it without knowing, it's not wrong per se because you didn't know. But once you find out that you took advantage of something, of a situation, then it becomes a problem. And again, when we deal with the government in our, paying taxes or especially in this country, for instance, taxes are so complex, right? What's fair and what's not fair? I'm not going to say anything here, but I'm just saying there are situations that are gray area, right? So if you feel that you have a clean conscience choosing those aspects, who are you harming? You are harming someone in particular, or you are harming the society as the government? Yes, you are harming the society as the government, right? How much? Again, it's our own individual consciences, right? And we know when we are doing wrong, when we are doing right. And if we don't know, if we sincerely don't know, we have no responsibility, right? If we take advantage of something in the tax law because we didn't know, we did our taxes wrong because we made a mistake and we took advantage and we didn't find out, you have no responsibility of something you don't know, right? That's that's the idea here, legitimate property, right? Okay, questions, comments?
Yeah, I think using the golden rules that Kardec used leaves that clear what is legitimate. Legitimate is what does not harm anyone. Why is that? Because you don't want to be harmed the same way that you harm someone else. That in itself establishes justice. What is putting this our days, our times, is that we are in a world where the means justify the ends, right? I mean, the goal is to be rich, and any way to get rich is justifiable, right? If we live in this system, it's very hard to keep with our moral, ethical values and witness all that is going on around us. But we need to learn with that. As long as we do not contaminate ourselves, we guide the world. You have to be here, but you don't need to be a part of what we already understand. It's not right. And that is a big challenge, especially many people in the financial system, to deal with this situation, to understand the corruption around them and not corrupting themselves. I can see that in my field. I see cases that, as an example, individuals that should not be operated because it's a full-time operation. It's just going to cause more pain and for the same result that surgeries try to avoid, that it's inevitable. And some people choose to go ahead and operate just to get the profit of it. It's rare, but it happens. And I live with that, and I have to be part of that system. I just can't contaminate myself and be, agree with something that I know it's disagreeable with the natural laws. But that's the world where we live. We have to deal with this.
Okay.
885,
Yeah.
is the right to property unlimited? Everything that has been legitimately acquired is property. However, as we have said, since human laws are flawed, they frequently establish conventional rights that contradict natural justice. For this reason, society reforms its laws as progress is accomplished and as it obtains a better notion of justice. What appears right in one century is barbarous in another.
Yeah. Again, the right to property is unlimited. What Kardec asks this is, can we keep accumulating wealth? And the answer from the spirits is yes, everything that has been legitimately acquired is property, right? Now, what we do with that, that's a different story, right? We have billionaires in this country, some of them that are very helpful and donate a lot to charity and help do a lot with their wealth. And there we have some billionaires that keep everything to themselves and to their families, or buy expensive planes and boats and things like that. Again, they are using their wealth, and at least when they're buying an expensive car, someone is building that car, so the money is going somewhere. But you know, whenever you have more than you need and you are not distributing the excess, you are going against the natural law, because the natural law is for us to find a balance and between what we own and what is needed around us, right? We can see, if you look at the countries, you can see the most developed countries in the world, the countries in Scandinavia, New Zealand, their highest salary compared to the lowest salary is a difference much smaller than here in the US, and that in, you know, even in the developed countries like France, Japan. But in the underdeveloped countries, the difference is stratospheric, right? So the ones that are very rich and take advantage of every opportunity they have in these underdeveloped countries, compared to a lot of people that live in misery, right? In a country like Denmark or Sweden, the top executive makes, I think it's, I don't remember if it's 8 times or 8 times the lowest, which is, you know, you see that that's a world of regeneration, right? That you know, the lowest salary is a tenth, let's say, than the highest salary. We see that there is a possibility. It is the way to progress, and it is possible, because all these countries are good countries to live in terms of providing help and assistance to those inhabitants. Of course, they're not perfect. They have imperfect spirits there that try to abuse the system. We have this everywhere, but they are a smaller number. And if justice catches them, they face the consequences by human laws, which doesn't happen in other countries, especially in underdeveloped countries. So again, when we limit the possibility of acquiring property, we are interfering with our free will, and we are with our possibility of developing. We need this thing needs to balance, according to us, society for the whole society to evolve together. And we are very far from that, of course, way long way to go, but we see that it's possible. There are some countries that it happens. It's the minority, but those countries 200 years ago were underdeveloped countries. So maybe in 200 years, we'll have much more a number of countries that will be like that. Okay. So that was this item. We're moving to the next one now.
886.
Yes.
What is the true meaning of the word charity as used by Jesus? Benevolence for everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. Love and charity complement the law of justice, since loving your neighbor is to do to them all the good in your power, all that we would wish to have done to ourselves. This is the meaning behind Jesus's words, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself." According to Jesus, charity is not restricted to giving alms, but covers all our relations with our fellow human beings, whether inferior, equal, or superior. It preaches indulgence on our part because we need the same ourselves, and it forbids us from humiliating the unfortunate, as is too often done. How many of us lavish respect and attention on the rich, yet think that being civil to the poor is not worth the time or effort? Yet, the more deplorable the situation of the poor, the more painstakingly we should refrain from adding humiliation to their misfortune. Those who are truly kind try to elevate others to their level by reducing the distance between them.
This is one of the most mentioned questions in the Spirit's book. I'm going to talk a little bit, but I'll pass to Elmo because Elmo covers this question very well. So, you know, I'll pass to him. But charity is generally understood as giving alms, right? If you ask a person in the street, what is charity? They will say it's giving money to the poor. And what the Spirit tells us, that the true meaning of the word charity, which is love in action, and you'll find many places that replace the word charity by love, especially that famous talk of Paul that we find, Paul the Apostle that we find in the Gospel according to Spiritism, that he uses charity, and some versions translated everything as love, right? So charity is love and action. What is charity? In the words of the spirits, benevolence for everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. All these three aspects are actions that we have to do actively in order to practice charity. Okay? And I'll pass to Alan.
So when Kardec tells us, or when the spiritualist tells us, that without charity there is no salvation, if charity was to share our property with others, and we just covered it here now, to give some of our material belongs and share with others, where charity, that means that the poor could not be saved. That means that those who do not have property were automatically condemned to not be saved. Because if I don't have anything to give, and only by giving I can be saved, that's it. I give up, right? So definitely, charity has to be more than that. And I think that this answer here tells everything. If Jesus taught us to be charitable, he expanded the definition of charity beyond assistencialism. Assistencialism is to share your property with others, to assist others with self-defense, right? I have the right to have property that I gain immediately, just call it over here. But if others do not have what's enough for them to have some dignity of life, they will try to steal some of it. They will try to, they will try to take from me what I have so they can have a minimum, at least to eat, but to have some dignity. So it's self-defense, it's protection of my own property. If I share a little bit what I have, so everyone else has some dignity, I don't have to build like huge walls around my house so that the thieves won't come in. Which is good. It's good for society, it's good for civil law, it's good for everything. So benevolence has two aspects. Assistencialism, which is good, providing some of, most of us, our excess, so we can share with others and we share. That's good, that's Christian, but not enough, has to go beyond. That's the giving of yourself. Because as Jean says very often, here, if I give the guy outside there $1, good, you spend $1 and that's it. If with that $1, I give him a smile, or tell him that things are going to get much better, those words are much more valuable than that $1. You're going to buy a bread, he's going to eat, he's going to be hungry again, but those words will stimulate him to perhaps find ways to produce his own $1. It's more than just give the $1. It's being benevolent. Like Mother Teresa would say, right? When she was attacked by the journalist who said that she was doing wrong for the poor, giving them the fish to teach them how to fish was the right thing to do. And the answer was, the ones that I assist are so hungry that they cannot hold the fishing pole. I have to give them the fish first, and then you come in and give him the fish pole and teach him how to fish. Right? Then you complete here what benevolence is. Indulgence. Each one of us are in one step of pathway of progress. No one is equal. I may be a little bit better in something, but I'm definitely worse in many other things. Right? And with those things that I need worse, I need indulgence. I need somebody to be patient with me, with my difficulties, those things. Technology, I can do anything with internet. I need help. If someone is not indulgent with my difficulties, I'm going to struggle. But probably there's something over there that I can be of assistance to those. To need to be indulgent with difficulties of one. Some people are impatient. They lack it. We need to be indulgent with their patience, with their impatience. Right? Forgiveness. What or who among us have not done something that we recognize being wrong, would like to be forgiven for what we have done? Go back to Jesus. He without sin that throw the first stone. Who did throw the first stone? And who was the first one to drop the stones and walk away? The elders. Why? Because they have great conscience of all the wrongdoing that they have done. So the charity in itself is the big umbrella that englobes all the virtues in it. Of course, no one can say that I'm fully charitable, right? But all of us has to move towards that object, that noble goal to reach eventually. In all of our actions, let's think, am I acting with benevolence, with indulgence, with forgiveness? Would I like to receive what I am giving to those individuals? And if you do that, you're going to have a much better society to live with.
So save the number of the question, 886, because a lot of times you are going to hear about this question. A lot of speakers talk about this question, and we use it in studies, in different studies. So again, charity, benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness, the true meaning of the word charity as used by Jesus. Okay. Again, assistantialism, as Elmo said, is also important, right? If someone is only giving money, at least is doing something. It's better than those that not even that do. So it's the first step to be charitable. Maybe for many of us is to give money. Give money to get rid of the problem, right? Is it ideal? Far from it. Is it better than nothing? Yes, it is, right?
Yeah, I think the most embarrassing thing that I see these days is someone begging on the streets and people not even look at the person who's asking. At least look at it, at least give the person a look. At least say, no, not today, later. That makes a difference, but completely ignore the words of someone sitting on this, it's very embarrassing, I think.
Okay, the other challenge on the next question. You're on mute, Philip.
887. Jesus also said, love your enemies. Does this contradict our natural tendency? And isn't unfriendliness due to a lack of sympathy between spirits? You cannot possibly love your enemies tenderly and passionately. That is not what he meant. To love one's enemies is to forgive them and to give them good in return for evil. In this way, you place yourselves above them, whereas by seeking revenge, you would place yourselves beneath them.
Yeah, that's also very important, right? The first thing that we have to analyze is the phrase love your enemies, right? We studied on the gospel on Sunday, the phrase from Jesus, those who do not hate father and mother are not going to find the kingdom of heaven. And then we went over the meaning of hate, which is not really hate. It was probably very mistranslated throughout the years, and then we mentioned that the best explanation would be love less instead of hate, right? You have to love God above all, love yourself, love God above all, and love your brother and sister like you love yourself. When you talk about love your enemies, what the Spirit tells us here is something different than love in the true sense. And again, we go back to the Greek, right, that have 7 definitions, words for love. From the agape, which is the perfect love, to the love that you have for, a physical attraction. The love your enemies here means do not vibrate in the same way they vibrate towards you. So someone hates you, in the true sense of the word hate. If you hate them back, you're no different than them, right? You're vibrating at the same level. You're exactly the same. So if you hate someone, you think that this someone is inferior to you, right? But the fact that you hate someone makes you equal to that person that you think is inferior. So as much low as you see that person is as much low as you are by hating them back. Now, we're not going to love them as we love our families, our loved ones. Again, it's not wanting them to suffer, to pay something evil for them. That's the meaning that Jesus said here. And again, someone that steals from you, you're not going to receive them in your home and open your house for them to continue stealing, right? But you protect yourself against the so-called enemies. Yes, that's your right. You have to protect yourself and your families, but you cannot wish harm to them. That's the true sense of love your enemies here. Again, it's hard. We cannot as I normally say, we cannot go from hate to love. We need to go through indifference in the middle, right? It is a challenge, especially when we see a lot of things that happen around us in the world today, right? That is very easily for us to judge people and automatically move towards hatred. The word hate, again, it's on only one word, but that is very strong. Sometimes you can think, well, I don't hate anyone. Okay, but you dislike people. You just have to read the news and you are going to see a lot of people that you dislike. How you behave towards those people that you dislike. It's a challenge. And again, I'm not saying here that I can deal with this challenge very well. You know, it's a struggle. You have to learn to change your thought process, to understand that we are all eternal spirits and that they will also eventually learn and evolve. But we don't want to be the contributors to their already difficult situation. We talk to spirits on Mondays here, right? And spirits that are obsessing, persecuting others. And we tell them that they are hurting themselves when more than they are hurting the person that they are persecuting. Again, when you are hating someone, and again, disliking, if you prefer the term, you are causing more harm to yourself than to the person. Maybe it's the person you are reading about it in the newspaper. That person doesn't know you. It makes no difference for them if you like or dislike them or you hate them. But who you are really harming, you're harming yourself, because the negative feelings cause negative energies to flow to our bodies, and that accumulation of that can cause us diseases and can cause us a lot of harm. So it's in that sense that the spirits are telling us here, we cannot love our enemies tenderly and passionately, is to forgive them and give them good in return for evil. You know, you read someone again, going back to the newspaper, you read about someone that is doing something that you 100% disagree. What you're going to think? Well, send them a prayer. You know, I hope the good spirits can open their minds and their hearts eventually and allow them to recognize that there is a better path. It's a simple prayer, because with that, you are benefiting yourself. Maybe they won't receive the prayer. Maybe they won't receive it in 100 years, the prayer, because they are not going to change in the next 100 years. But it doesn't matter, because you are doing it for yourself. You are changing your mental vibrations and you are changing your energies around you. Remember what Chico Xavier said, right? When you hate someone, you send a copy and you keep the original. And the original is what really causes harm. Okay? Okay? Questions, comments? All right.
So I think in the going back to benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness in relation to the enemies. First, enemies. How you define enemies? You know, who's the enemy? In this polarized world today, that everybody's moving so far to the right and the other so far to the left. So it seems like the enemy is one on the other side, right? But is it really? Right? Are those my enemies? Those who think like me now have become my enemies. It seems like there is a movement today, especially with the possibility of internet, that can congregate themselves, way to think this way, just read the things that we like to read together, and not open to the other side, become more and more polarized and radicals, that we start to create enemies. I think that's one of the problems that you have to be careful with. But very often, out of love, let's say in the case of going to use a theft, somebody comes to your house and breaks down your house. Very often, The charity, the benevolence towards that individual is to have them arrested, pull them into an institution where they have the hope, if if the institution were really meant to recover individuals, to be recovered and put back in society. So very often the benevolence that I can give to that individual is to prevent them to commit any more crimes at that point in their lives, because they're not listening to their moms, they say not to do it. They already done it. So very often the benevolence, the good that we give to those individuals is exactly to take them away from society in this particular case. And to not wish any harm to that individual. I think that is the most important. That's the forgiveness part of it. The forgiveness to not wish harm. And when you have the possibility of being helpful to be helpful to those individuals, I think that's the biggest challenge for us.
Okay, 888. So let's talk about giving money, right?
What should we think of almsgiving? To be reduced to begging degrades people, both morally and physically. It wears them down. In a society based on divine law and justice, a provision would be made for assisting the weak without humiliating them. This way, everyone who is unable to work would be guaranteed the means necessary to live so as not to leave their life at the mercy of chance and individual goodwill. Are you criticizing the practice of giving alms? No. Giving money to the poor is not what is reprehensible. The problem is the way in which it too is too often done. Those who understand charity as preached by Jesus seek out the needy themselves without waiting for them to hold out their hand. True charity is always gentle and compassionate, because the manner of practicing kindness is as important as the deed itself. A service, when gracefully rendered, has twice as much merit. If this same act is rendered in a patronizing manner, despite being accepted, the recipient's heart is not touched by it. Remember that ostentation and pretension destroy the merit of generosity in God's eyes. Jesus said, "Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." This teaches that charity should not be tarnished by pride. A distinction must be made between almsgiving and benevolence. The neediest individuals are not always those found begging on the side of the road. Many who are truly poor are kept back from begging by dread of humiliation and preferring to suffer silently and in secret. Those who are truly humane seeks out this hidden misery and relieves it without any form of pretension. Love one another is the divine law by which God governs all the worlds of the universe. Love is the law of attraction for living and organized beings, and attraction is the law of love for inorganic matter. Never forget that all spirits, regardless of the degree of advancement, whether reincarnated or errant, are always placed between a more elevated spirit who guides and perfects them and a less elevated one towards which they have the same duties to fulfill. Be charitable, and not just by coldly tossing a coin to a beggar who dares to ask for it from you, but by seeking out the poverty that hides itself from plain view. Be indulgent to the faults and weaknesses of those around you, instead of despising the ignorant and vicious, educate them and make them better. Be gentle and compassionate to those lagging behind you, and act the same with respect to the humblest beings of creation, and you will have obeyed God's law. St. Vincent of Paul.
Okay, so this answer was given by Vincent of Paul, Saint Vincent of Paul, which is an individual that lived in the 1500s, if I'm not mistaken, in France, and he was extremely charitable person that dedicated his life. He was a monk. He dedicated his life to help the poor and assist the poor and those the neediest ones. So he's the precursor of helping and assisting those in need. There are a lot of institutions founded later that were based on his work and on his ideas. So he's definitely an evolved spirit. And the answer that he gives to us here is very important in the sense that what Elmo mentioned briefly, giving money is just the beginning. It doesn't really solve the problem of the beggar. The beggar is already there, humiliated by having to ask for help. And if you give money to them without paying any attention to them, you are really not practicing any charity. You are just trying to get rid of a problem that is there in front of you. What Elmo mentioned is I saw that in a movie called The Same Kind of Wonderful or something like that, right? Which is someone it's a true story of a guy in Texas that starts helping someone in need and in the end he opened a NGO with this former homeless man. And one of the first things that this homeless man tells him is exactly that. Do you think when you are giving me $5, you are doing anything for me? You know, with this $5, I buy food and then I'm hungry again. The way you look at me, the way you pay attention at me, the way you see me is what really makes the difference. And that's the reality, that's the charity here, right? That's what St. Vincent of Paul is telling us. But he asks us to go beyond that. It's to look for the hidden sufferers, for the ones that have nothing and are afraid to ask for help. There is one of the most beautiful passages of the gospel according to Spiritism is the story of that lady that teaches her daughter how to be charitable, that she goes out there to the poor to help the poor in need by taking care of the families, and then she teaches her daughter to sew and to make clothes, because she says, if I give you money for you to give to them, you are not doing anything by yourself. True charity is for you to do the work. So because you don't have money, what you have is the ability to sew things, to clothes for them. And then they say that she dresses very humbly. She's a noble lady, but she dresses very humbly, not to cause discomfort amongst those that she's helping. And this is the true meaning of evolved spirit practicing charity, right? The other day I was reading the story of one of the most famous soccer players in the world that's from an African country. And all his colleagues have the latest Ferraris and Porsches. He has what's that small car?
Volkswagen?
The very small car that he said, I just need a car to go from one place to another. I don't need any more than that. And I'll feel embarrassed if I have a better car instead of giving money to those in need in my country. So he opened a lot of charitable institutions in his country. I don't remember which country is Ghana or one of the others. Senegal, Ghana, I don't remember. So you see a more evolved spirit. He has the opportunity of making money playing soccer, right? He's very well paid, makes a lot of money. But with what he does with his money, he takes care of those in need. This is what the lesson is here for us. It's to go beyond giving alms. Like Elmo said, sometimes, you know, someone knocks at your door hungry. You're not going to give them the gospel because they are hungry. What they need is food, right? When they are fed, maybe you can talk about Jesus and the gospel and other things. But until they are fed, what you need to do, the true charity, is to attend to their needs. Yeah.
I have an example. One of my running coaches. He was in Kenya for training and with elite runners, and he was robbed of his shoes. He went back to his country. At that time, he was, I think, Sweden. He landed there, bare feet, you know. But then after that, he come back to the Kenya many times, and now he has a very nice organization that builds schools. He built a hospital to help the Kenyans, and then now they have to run in order to get the shoes. They don't just handle shoes. They have to kind of participate in something, have to have good grades in order to have the shoes.
Yeah.
So it's something that happens with him. They said, oh, they're stealing my own shoes. So now he's big.
Yeah.
But that started very small. And so with someone that came from a very rich country, that could, okay, leave it there. But no, he went back there and helped them. It's really nice.
You see how it's possible, right? You can take things that happen to you in one direction, the wrong direction, or you can take to in a positive, you know, use it positively, right? Because we all face challenges. How can we use these challenges in a positive way, right?
I think it's a very good example. We try to make this a political discussion or the best social economic arrangement. It's when the Spirit tells us here that that in more evolved societies, in society based on divine law and justice, a provision would be made for assisting the weak without humiliating them. So in a more charitable, adjustable society, there will be no beggars, because we would provide for them before they need to beg. They would assist them, the way she said, not by giving just for the sake of giving, but provide them opportunities to build their own future, to learn, to educate them. And how is it going to be done if each one of us does not contribute for the good of the general good? Because this individual is one only, right? Imagine if everyone was willing to take a little bit more in order to assist, to provide, to eliminate that kind of poverty. Eliminate the possibility of what have to go to the streets and humiliate themselves to beg. So if we have a system to prevent it from happening in the first place, that's the greatest justice and charity that we could do as citizens of our community. Don't wait until it happens. In this case, it's a very example. It was a good example that you want shoes. I have shoes for you. Show me that you are ready to use those shoes, and you have them. You have to run. You have to do something. If we, as members of society, start to have projects to prepare individuals to be self-sufficient, there will be no beggars.
Okay. Comments, questions? Okay, our time is up, but there is only one question left, so let's do the final question of this item so we don't leave it hanging for next week.
889. Aren't there people reduced to begging due to their own fault? Of course. But if a complete moral education had taught them to practice God's law, they would not have fallen victim to the excesses that caused their demise. The improvement of your world ultimately relies on spreading this education.
Again, moral education, exactly what I was saying, right? Most homeless people in the city of New York are not homeless because they are homeless because they have mental diseases or because they have lost everything through
Moral diseases.
yeah, moral diseases, yes. So many of them that are try to be helped and assisted, in fact, unfortunately, the system is very inefficient here in New York, that cannot provide assistance to them, efficient assistance to them, in order to remove them from the streets, because they prefer to stay in the streets than go to the shelters and be robbed in the shelters and things like that. But you know, there are opportunities in a place like this in New York City, and many of those that fall through the sides are those that have problems based on their own mental problems or drug problems and things like that. So is it their fault? Not exclusively. It's their fault. We have all our responsibility. They end up there because they have some responsibility, but society as a whole has a bigger responsibility towards those that are left in the sides of society. Okay. Okay. All right. So we stop here. Next week, maternal and filial love, which is still in the chapter of law of justice, love, and charity. Zoraida, can we do our final prayer? But before that, let me talk about what we have this weekend. On Saturday, we have the lecture will be by it's called Define Selfishness by Marcio Silva, which is very appropriate with everything we just studied here, right? Define Selfishness, Saturday, 11 a.m. And on Sunday, we are going to study the Medium's book. It's the third Sunday of the month. The book club will discuss chapter 3 on Wednesday at 7 p.m. of the book Prelude to the Divine Kingdom by Amélia Rodrigues through the psychography of Divaldo Franco. Okay, so I will do a final prayer.
Of course. As we come to the end of our meeting today, may we give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and our beloved Father that have come here to assist our teachers in our lesson today. A lesson that continues to teach us as spiritists. We know the laws that surround us are most important, most crucial, to love our God with all our hearts and souls, and to do unto others through love and charity. Knowing how much work is needed to practice in our daily lives. May we take this with us and work each day with hearts to do what Jesus has given us to work with in our lives, with his virtues in our hearts each day. May we continue to pray for all who are going through pain and suffering throughout this land, in the war that continues. We pray for the hospitals and hospices, the homeless, the undeveloped countries, all that are suffering so much. May we continue sending them the love and strength and courage to continue forward. We pray for the SGNY in all Spiritist centers. We give thanks to the United States Spiritist Federation and the United States Spiritist Council. And may we also join our study groups throughout the week and allow us to return again next week And with this in mind, dear Lord, we ask permission to close our meeting today. So be it.